Hey everyone, welcome to the 5 Beer Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, I continue with summer beer school, start hopping up the homebrew project, engage with Em Sauter from Pints Panels, and sip on a little bit of Belgian-y goodness from Chimay. But before we get this party started, here is this episode's burning question. What is your favorite Belgian beer? One of my highest rated favorites is a beer that is not your typical Belgian called Barista Chocolate Quad from Castile Brewery. It's a Belgian quadruple with an amazing chocolate aroma. It is dark and thick with a smooth and decadent flavor. Alright, my beer-centric students, it's time for the third session of Yeast Feast. Welcome to Yeast 101. In order for us to move forward with this new segment, it is necessary for me to continue to lay the groundwork. Please keep in mind that I am learning right beside you. Right alongside you. As I have mentioned before, there are 4 basic ingredients for making beer: malt, hops, water, and yeast. Without these ingredients, we would not be able to fully enjoy beer as we know it today. I know it is starting to get a bit technical, but I would ask you to just breathe. But not like yeast. So how do yeast breathe? There is this little thing that yeast undergoes called anaerobic respiration. This is a chemical process that takes place in the absence of oxygen. It is the opposite of aerobic respiration, which requires an oxygen-rich environment. Microorganisms like yeast break down sugar in the wort into ethanol, carbon dioxide, and releases energy. For those who remember anything about science, there is this thing called the conservation of energy. This means that energy does not disappear but has to go somewhere. During this anaerobic respiration, the temperature during the early phases during fermentation can increase by as much as 8 degrees Fahrenheit as composed to the temperature outside the fermenter. You can be sure that the yeast is breathing by the bubbling of the airlock in your brewing system during fermentation. Lack of bubbling could indicate that the environment for your yeast is not ideal. I hope you'll keep tuning in because it's going to continue to be an interesting journey. In this segment of Homebrew Hijinks, it's time to drop the hops in the North Avenue Double. The hop schedule on this beer was put together to develop some great flavor and aroma on this double IPA. I placed my hop spider in my pasta pot and cranked up the heat. Just as a reminder for anyone listening for the first time, a hop spider is a stainless steel mesh basket where hops are added to minimize the amount of hop matter that would end up in the fermenter, making for a cleaner final product. This would be a 60-minute boil. Once I got the wort boiling, it was time to add 4 grams of Centennial hops. This addition would provide the main amount of bitterness to the beer, since it would undergo isomerization for the entire time. I set my timer, and with 20 minutes remaining, I added 7 grams of Citra, which would provide some bitterness but also add some nice citrusy flavors to the beer. With 10 minutes left, I added 3 ounces of table sugar, which would bump up the amount of fermentables in the wort and ultimately the ABV of the beer. At the 5-minute mark, a late addition of some more Citra would give the beer a little bump on the citrusy profile that I was going for. Once my boil time was completed, I took the pot off the burner. I had some HBC 586 left over from my attempt at the Black is Beautiful Volume 2 recipe, so I added some of those hops to the basket at the end of the boil. This addition is sometimes referred to as knockout hops. This hop variety will add a nice tropical touch. I swirled the hop basket around for a minute in the pot and then let the hops stand for 10 minutes before I removed the hop basket. Next time, I'll pitch the yeast. Now, it's time for Barstool Banter. Listen in for a most enjoyable interview that is slightly different than anything I've done before. This episode, Em Sauter from Pints Panels joins me to talk about visual beer education, being a cartoonist in the modern era, and her experience homebrewing. Welcome to Barstool Banter. I'm sitting down with Em Sauter from Pints Panels, who resides in New Britain, Connecticut. Em, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, yours is a very interesting and varied personal ale trail, as I've found. You're a talented artist, you're an award winning cartoonist, an author, a beer judge, cicerone, podcaster. I'm sure I'm missing something. What other things related to the craft industry are you involved in?
Oh, geez. There's so much to list. Not to sound like a jerk or like, it's weird when people are like, you do things. And I'm like, do I? My podcast is the All About Beer podcast. So we do that every 2 weeks. I write for Forbes. So I do beer articles for them twice a month or so. I've written for myriad of other, All About Beer, Alcohol Professor, Vine Pair, bunch of places. Trying to think, beer judging. I travel all over the world to get to judge beer competitions. I'm an advanced cicerone. I'm actually just about to start my W set level 2 in spirits because once a week I started doing cocktail simple on Pints and Panels just to, beer is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. I love it. And my passion is that. But, some people don't drink beer. Cocktails have a more, not global appeal because beer is technically more popular than spirits in terms of what's drank. But it's just a good way to diversify the brand, if you will.
Yeah,
And I get to learn stuff about spirits as well because my knowledge about spirits is not, it's good, but it's not super great like beer is. So I want to make sure that I learn a lot. So I get to start that next week, actually. So I'm gonna,
awesome.
yeah, beer is my life. Like it's day in and day out. Everything revolves around beer for good, mostly for good.
Yeah, I would agree. And I love your Instagram feed. I've
Thank
noticed
you.
the kind of the shift to the mixed drink thing, and I was like, oh, okay, she's going into a little bit different segment here, which I appreciate. I like to learn new things, especially when it comes to craft in general. So I don't remember exactly when I ran across Pints and Panels on social, but I really love your visual beer education, and it really resonated with me as a lover of craft beer. So how long ago did you start Pints and Panels?
So Pints and Panels started as a beer review site in 2010 when I was at art school. So I was getting my MFA in cartooning from the Center for Cartoon Studies, which is a small arts program in Vermont. And being in Vermont in 2010, you are surrounded by excellent beer. Hill Farmstead's just starting out. I lived equidistant between Long Trail and Harpoon because 2010 is kind of pre-local. Small breweries are starting, but the bigger regionals were like good quality. So there was those. And I was like, I want to review beer in cartoon form. And so I started that in 2010. And I did that till about 2018 or 2019. And then one day I was just, I was studying for, I believe, the Master Cicerone exam, and I'm a visual learner. And so I wanted to make art for myself. And I posted one on Twitter, and people really responded to it. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Because, like I love to draw and, beer reviews are great, but with the way that there's so many breweries now where I said that's what I love about travel when you travel anywhere else in the world is like you're bombarded by I've never heard of X, Y, or Z brands. And so it's really
Right.
great. And so reviewing beer is great, but maybe that's only available to certain people. Connecticut has a bunch, most of our breweries don't leave the state. And so, reviewing one of their beers, it's like, how helpful is that? And so switching to education got my work in front of wider audience. And so I've been doing visual beer education for about 5 years now. And yeah, it's been really awesome. People from all over the world look at it. I pinch myself when I wake up every morning. It's just so much fun to get to learn every day. I'm learning something new, but then also help people learn about beer as well in an
Sure.
accessible manner.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I love too, is that you share your knowledge for free. In fact, it really inspired me when I first started my podcast and I was going into my second season and trying to figure out where I was going to go. And I started to review one variety of hop every month. I think it was just prior to that that I'd seen some of your visual education on different hop varieties and the profiles and things. I was like, oh, okay, this is so cool. So I did draw upon that from time to time when I was going into
Sure.
my investigations of, hops. I love your artwork too and the
Thank
whimsical
you.
style. How did you settle on that kind of as your hallmark?
So that's the only way I can draw.
Okay.
When I was 11, I was really into Archie comics because I was at summer camp. And so that's my attempt to draw like Archie and Betty and Veronica. I remember being in sixth grade study hall and like doodling. I always loved to doodle. And I drew like a character and they look very similar to how I draw now. Nothing's really changed. And I remember being like, oh, that's good. Like it was a real like, oh, that's like all right. And so that continued and like it's just hours and hours of doodling and drawing and I used to work in finance and I would draw for my boss. I'd make him fun cartoons and put them in his folder before he'd go into meetings. And, getting to go to the Center for Cartoon Studies was instrumental in having me learn the process because, I'm just doodling. I
Right.
didn't know anything about putting together a story, learn using Photoshop or InDesign. And now I draw 100% digitally.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah. So I got diagnosed with wrist tendonitis from the way that I drew. It
Mm-hmm.
was very painful. And my physical therapist was like, maybe you should switch to the iPad because the way I was coloring, the way I was doing my work was straining my wrist a lot. And so who
Okay.
knew that artists could injure themselves?
Right, right.
So,
Well, I think that any sort of a job where you're doing repetitive motion, I mean, I sit at a desk,
yeah.
using a keyboard and a mouse all day
Hmm.
long, and I'm sure I probably have carpal tunnel. Who knows? It's the same sort of thing. So I guess it's wouldn't be unexpected, especially as
Hmm.
much art as you crank out, it seems.
I do draw a lot and then, my own website, but then I do commissions for people. So if you want your brewery staff drawn, your family, your house, your favorite bar. So I do those. And then I also do, outside work for breweries, distilleries, doing education for them, art, label design, stuff like that. The list is long. There's always something to do, which is really, really nice. There's always something to work on.
Sure. And going digital also, first of all, it saves a lot of space, right? Because you don't have pads and pads and pads of paper that you're drawing upon and, pencils and pens and all the things you would use there, although you probably, I'm sure, still use those from time to time. But that probably has transformed the way that you can get your art and your pints and panels out onto the social media platforms because it's probably a lot easier, isn't it? You don't have to scan things and make sure the color's right and whatnot. You're doing that right away as you're drawing them.
It's really great. So I have an iPad Pro, which my classmates at CCS, I went to them. We have like a Discord channel and you can ask advice and stuff. So everyone's on there and they were like, buy this, buy this, buy this. It's been really helpful. My art has actually changed slightly. I feel like the art has gotten a little looser, my style. It's subtle. I've only had a couple of people be like, your art's changed, but it's really great. Traveling with the iPad surprisingly weighs a bunch. Whereas when you traveled with a pad and a pen, they were light and you could kind of draw wherever and you were like, oh, if I lose it, it's no big deal.
Right,
For the most part. But then you can't travel with a scanner, so everything has to be done. I bring my iPad on vacation with me because I'm one of those people because I just love what I do.
right.
And so it's really been helpful. It's been almost 2 years since I switched to digital. And I should have done it earlier. I had all my cartoonist friends switched like years and years and years ago, and I was stubborn and I was just like, no, no, I'm not. But it's so much easier. And the art, it's really nice. I mean, yeah, you don't get originals per se. You don't have
Right.
like a hard copy, but the art speaks for itself. And so
Mhm.
yeah, everything gets whatever, airdrop everything into Mac. So I goes to my MacBook Air and then I can clean stuff up in Photoshop and then off it goes. And you're
Yeah.
not having pads and pads and pads of paper, which I still do. My first and second book, for the most part, were paper. And so I have all of them stacked up. And a lot of my art isn't just, it's all like puzzle, you draw it and then you build it in Photoshop. So there isn't like full complete pages. It's all taking this and dropping it here. And I mean, that's how kind of cartooning is done nowadays, which that's not bad. It's just
Right.
making sure whatever works for you as an artist.
Did you find it more of a challenge to go from using a pencil? I'm just thinking from a dexterity standpoint. If I were to try to sign my name with pen and paper versus signing with a mouse or some other item, it's not as easy and I don't find it as maybe as clean. Have you refined that to the point where you're comfortable with that?
One of the reasons why I didn't switch originally, because a lot of the way that you can draw now is with the Apple Pencil. So that's easy. It's just like a pencil and
Hmm.
you can draw right on the iPad. I use Procreate, which is a one-time app of $12, $10 when I got it. And there's no monthly maintenance fee like there is for Photoshop or, InDesign, which I pay for. So there was no real like challenge. It was just making sure I knew how Procreate worked and then doing it that way. So the reason I didn't swap a long time ago is that didn't exist. You would draw on a Wacom tablet, which is not a screen. You have to kind
My
of
daughter
draw
has one
and
of those.
yeah, and you kind of have to look at the
Yeah.
monitor. And I'd watch my classmates do that, and they could do it seamlessly. And I would try it, and my art just it wouldn't work. And so I was like, why would I stop doing what I'm doing? I'm just going to use pen and paper the way it's always been done. And then once I found out about Procreate using the Apple Pencil 2, which has, I mean, it mimics a real, like it feels, and then you buy like a screen to put on your iPad so it creates tooth, similar, how paper has kind of grooves in it.
Right.
You can get them in various different varieties, so it feels like paper. It really is seamless. 2024, I mean, technology, man.
Would not have expected that, honestly.
It's
Would
awesome.
not
Oh, and
have.
there's so many other things that I don't use that artists use, like special art boards, different tips you can get. You can download different pen lines. I mean, it's really cool. It's really, really cool.
It seems like it'd be really easy, though, to get down a rabbit hole of cash flow where you're trying to get all the latest and greatest and keeping up. So I suppose you probably have to, at some point, say, okay, this is enough. I'm
Yeah.
satisfied. And until I run into some sort of a roadblock where I can't do what I need to do, I'm just going to
hmm
keep using what I'm using.
Yeah, everything I use, I'm, steady course. There's nothing really that I'm like, man, I wish I could do blank.
Yeah.
It's pretty seamless. I really love my iPad. It weighs a lot and it's big because they were like, buy the largest one you can so you can draw on it and treat it like a regular sheet of paper. If you had a smaller one, it's harder. It is a little cumbersome, but I mean, I got over that. I've had it for, like I said, almost 2 years, and it's great. Like I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of it.
Well, I know as a podcaster, I run into a wall from time to time when it comes to content and creativity. How do you deal with that in your line of work?
Well, the thing about beer is that you have so many different styles. And so I kind of lean on the beer styles. I also try to get outside of the normal beer styles that, let's say, the Beer Judge Certification Program, BJCP, or Brewers Association would use. And I go, what kind of African beers are out there? What kind of things are they doing in Australia, South America, Mexico, Asia? There's so much in beer. And you can also
Yeah.
rework everything as well. So I look back at stuff I've drawn a few years ago and I'm like, oh man, I'd love to redo that, new and improved kind of stuff. There's so much to teach. And then there's also a lot of the content I try to create is very like positive, treating beer in a very like positive, global, and then also teach and the other side, like it is alcohol. So doing a lot of content about like moderation and making
Right.
sure, don't drink so much or, examining your relationship with alcohol because it's something that is very important to me and should be very important to people in the beer industry or people who love beer in general.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. Well, as an author, you've released collections such as Beers for Everyone of Drinking Age and Hooray for Craft Beer, which is one of my favorites.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I would recommend this book because it's very approachable for anyone, I think, that wants to learn more about craft beer. And I think that it is approachable from many levels, whether you're an expert in beer or whether you're just starting out in your beer journey. You also have a new book that's coming out, so I'm excited about that. Can you tell me about that and what it will contain?
Yes. So I actually have a third book out, but it is in Spanish, unless you speak fluent
No
Spanish.
hablas español.
So bueno. I'm going to Spain in November and I'm doing an event with a brewery in northern Spain. And I told them on the phone, I was like, oh, my Spanish is, we're going to have a conversation when I see you. And the guy said in English, oh, are you a fast learner then? Like kind of a dig. And I was like, oh, no. Okay, we're going to just speak in English when I see you. I was in Costa Rica in May. I can listen and understand what people are saying.
Mhm.
It's the conversation. If they ask me a question, I just like freeze. I don't know what's
Right.
going on.
I'm like, más cerveza, por favor.
Yeah. I know cerveza. I can order food. I can ask for directions.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
yeah.
I was in Chile and I asked for directions and the man gave me directions and I still have no idea what he said. No clue. And I just said, gracias, señor. And I was like, well, all right. Was not helpful. The Chilean dialect is different. I was just in Argentina. There, yeah. So anyway, I have a third book that's in Spanish that was published by a Spanish and Panamanian publishing house called Libros de Guarda, and that's out now. So if any of your listeners do speak Spanish and want a style guide in Espanol, you may purchase that. I have it on my website. And then my
Excellent.
fourth book is called Pairing Beer with Everything, which is a collection of, I do infographic. So there'll be 9 to 12 different beer and food pairings that'll have a theme. So everything from like candy to pork, like bacon, ham, I don't know, German foods, cuisine of the world. I worked with a lot of beer sommeliers, cicerones, and people all over the world to do everything from German to most of the South American countries, Mexico, Central America, Canada, Australia. So that's in there. So it's a collection, but then it's also a collection of more conceptual pairings. So pairing beer with movies from the 1990s. And I have a description in the beginning about, how you can do conceptual pairings because there's really no wrong answer. And then, the book is like, what would you pair with these and why? These are my suggestions, but there really isn't any kind of, except for some beer and food pairing rules. For conceptual, there's no rule. I just want to pair beer with my favorite football team with my favorite beer, and that's why it works for me. So it's 170 different infographics, and the book will hopefully be out soon. The book was supposed to come out in March, but I am doing all the publishing myself. So this is a self-published book.
Okay.
And I have never designed a book. I've laid it out in InDesign and I've given it to the publisher, and then they do everything. And there is way more on the back end that I knew, from color to making sure that like there are layers to a lot of things that I had done incorrectly that I didn't know. And so I believe the printer of this book wants to kill me because the amount of emails she and I had were over 100, I want to say,
Okay.
where I would hand her the thing, I'd upload it, and she'd come back to me the next day and be like, well, here are the things we need to fix. And then I'd fix them. And then 3 days later, I'd send it to her again. And then she would be like, well, now we have to fix these. Shout out to Jason, who was the designer at Brewers Publication, who designed Hooray for Craft Beer. He was super helpful. And then Joe Martinez, who did the design layout for my Spanish language book, who lives in Panama. And he was the one that was like, these are the things that you need to fix and then how to fix them. And they were both really, really helpful, but it was time consuming and very much a learning curve thing. So I had no clue what was going on. I had no idea. Yeah, so it's under the Pints and Panels press. I'm gonna probably do a book a year. I want to do a style guide in English. I really want to do kids book, those rounded corner cardboard chewy
Yeah.
books, but for adults. But
Okay.
it looks like a kid's book. And I've actually already talked to my publisher, like who printed the book, about it and like got in quotes for it. And so that's probably going to come out in 2025. And that'll be a very silly, like gift kind of joke book about like, like let's talk about the mash tun, but it looks like a kid's book, but it's for adults. I don't want anyone to think that I'm like teaching kids to drink beer. That's not is not, I am no, I don't. Everyone be responsible and drink when you are allowed to.
Yep, I agree. So, have you ever homebrewed before?
I have homebrewed once, and I was with my boyfriend at the time. We went to his parents' house and we brewed a porter. This is 2008, 2007, when I lived in Boston, and it fermented poorly. So it came out to like 3% alcohol, but his mother thought it was the best thing and she drank all of them. So it did not go to waste. The thing about it was I always remember it was really thin and weak, but it was clean and there were no off flavors that I recall. I had a really good friend from high school who was an award-winning home brewer, and I used to drive down to because he still lives in my hometown. I used to go help him homebrew, and that was more my speed because homebrewing is really hard. Kudos to all the homebrewers out there who are doing it because it is a lot of work.
I agree. I
Yeah.
started a year and a half ago homebrewing.
Oh, nice.
So I'm probably on my 12th or 13th batch of beer.
Oh,
I'm
wow,
just
that's
I'm just doing
awesome.
one gallon batches, so just enough
Yeah.
to be able to toy around with and enjoy and share with a couple friends. So current one that I have, it's a cream ale that I
Oh,
conditioned
nice.
on fresh strawberries purchased from a farm, Creek Valley Farms, just north of me here where I live. And I added some cacao nibs that I crushed. So I'm hoping to get kind of a
Oh,
chocolate
wow.
strawberry thing. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I
Huh.
tasted it a couple days ago before I put the cacao in, and I had a
Hmm.
nice strawberry flavor. So I was pretty excited about that.
Nice. Strawberries are really hard to brew with because you got to use a lot of them to
Right,
get
right.
strawberry flavor. So anytime I find a beer that has that fresh strawberry flavor, I'm always like super jazzed because
Yeah.
it is a really hard fruit to brew. It's not like, raspberry where you don't have to use as much. Strawberry flavor is tough. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks. I think I put a pound of pureed strawberries in the secondary.
I love engaging with people, and I hope maybe someday when I retire to be able to work in a brewery. I think that I saw someplace that you sling suds at a brewery local to you. Can you tell me about that?
So yeah, I work part-time at a brewery called Fox Farm, which is in Salem, Connecticut. It's actually the brewery shirt I'm wearing right now. Local is subjective. It's about 45 minutes from my house, so it's not close. I'm slightly biased, but I mean, it is the best brewery in the state. The beer is really amazing. I started working there in July of, yeah, 6 years ago,
Okay.
July 2018. I met the owner through a friend. Like, I went drinking at the brewery. I tried some of his stuff. I wrote him a thank you note because it was Sunday afternoon. He has family, thanking him for his time. And he emailed me back and he's like, "You want to work part-time at the brewery?" And I was like, I do want to do that. And then I never left. But I'm not there that much anymore. I
Okay.
probably work once a month, if that. I'm the, "Oh, so and so's ill." I'll get a phone call sometimes. "So and so's sick. We really need you." "Oh, I'm free." "Okay, yeah, I'll be there. Let me put pants on. Be there in an hour." If someone goes away or someone goes to a beer festival. I mean, it's a very small 2,000 barrel, if that, brewery, super tiny, 15, 20 barrel system, open 4 days a week. We have a pour limit, so it's not, it's in an old dairy barn from the 60s. But we brew everything. I mean, we just installed two beer engines, like
Okay.
with cask breathers. So we have
Uh-huh.
two traditional British styles on at all times.
Nice.
Sometimes we pour our American brown ale and some American beers through them, but they're at 50 degrees. They taste really good. We have the real system. We have a Luker side pull, so we do two beers off of that, mostly Czech beers. We brew Czech pale, Czech amber, and a Czech dark lager, but we'll pour German beers sometimes through there as well. We used to pour our British styles through the Luker, actually, the side pull, which was really good until we got the beer engines. And then we have 12 taps, I think. And that's, anything. We have a bunch, we do a lot of mixed fermentation, a lot of spontaneous
Nice.
fermentation, and then we brew, we're in New England, so fair amount of New England IPAs, all hazy and juicy, really good stuff. And then darker beers, we do a really good brown ale, we do an imperial oatmeal stout. I mean, it's a really nice place. The owners are awesome. Everyone who works there is really nice. The vibe is really chill. The last time I worked was Father's Day, and
Okay.
it was insane. The line was super, super long, but it was a beautiful day, so everyone was outside, and I went to go collect glassware outside, and you couldn't tell that it was busy. It felt relaxed. Everyone had a space, bring a couple chairs, picnic. It's a really, really nice place to come because it's pretty rural. I mean, Connecticut's a small state, but Salem's, you want to go to the grid, it's 20 minutes to pretty much everything, which is
Okay.
far in terms of New England.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a nice brewery. The owner, again, it's him and his brother. It's a really, really nice place to work.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up, but first, one more for the road. This episode, I'm drinking Grand Reserve from Bière de Chimay. From the brewer, the Chimay Blue Cap baptized Grand Reserve in 750 milliliter bottles is a dark Trappist beer with a powerful aroma, the complex flavor of which improves across the years. It was first brewed as a Christmas beer by the monks of Scourmont Abbey in 1956. This authentic Belgian beer, whose tinge of fresh yeast is associated with a light rosy flowery touch, is particularly pleasant. Its aroma, perceived as one enjoys it, only accents the delightful sensations revealed by the odor, all revealing a light but agreeable caramelized note. It is ideally served at cellar temperature. Without further delay, this is a 9% ABV Belgian dark ale with a moderate 35 IBUs. I purchased this in a 3-bottle set that had been on sale after the holidays. It also included the red and white cap versions as well. Since I had never tried any of these, I decided to go for it. So I poured this out into a goblet that I'd gotten in a gift set from St. Bernardus, Watau. The beer poured a ruby to deep brown color, It has a nice creamy white head on it. So on the nose, it's got that great Belgian yeast that is so typical of this style of beer. Might even get just a little bit of a malt, like a roasted malt aroma as well in there. And of course, that Belgian yeast often imparts more floral esters into the aroma. So again, it's something that's, to some people, is maybe more of an acquired thing. Not everybody likes Belgian beers, but I certainly enjoy these from time to time. All right, so the first sip impression here. That is delicious. So it's super smooth on the front. It has a nice caramel to toffee kind of flavor on it. I get some perceived spice in there as well. And it finishes with a little bit of a mild bitterness, not overly so. It has just a hint of sweetness on it. Maybe getting just a little bit of dark fruit, maybe a little bit of raisin or something to that effect. It leaves a little bit of a mouth coating at the end that maybe dries the palate out just a little bit, but nothing that really detracts from the taste at all. In fact, it always just makes me want to go back and have more. So I give this one 4 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. Cheers, bières de Chimay. I'm always looking for new craft beverages to review. So if you've got one from your favorite local craft brewery, meadery or cidery you'd like me to drink and describe, reach out and let me know. That's all for this episode of the 5 Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time as I continue to lay the groundwork for yeast, continue my conversation with the very talented Em Sauter from Pints Panels, and review another beer. Remember to hit the subscribe button on your preferred podcast platform to be notified of new episodes. Follow me on Instagram as well, 5 Beer Plan 2022, to see what is happening on my personal ale trail. I'd love to hear from you, and there are several ways you may do so. Leave a comment for this episode on Spotify, direct message me on Instagram, or even email me directly, 5beerplan@frontier.com. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail, and stay thirsty, my friends.